The marble floor of the elite trust bank reflected the afternoon sun like polished glass, a stark contrast to Arthur Vance's worn leather boots. Arthur stood at the teller window, his calloused hands holding a piece of paper that looked like it had survived a tractor accident, crumpled, smudged with genuine Iowa topsoil, and torn clean down the left edge. Behind the bulletproof glass, Assistant Manager Julian Vance, no relation, and he would loudly insist on that, didn't just frown, he let out a sharp, mocking laugh that echoed through the quiet lobby. "Sir, we don't accept garbage," Julian said, tossing the torn slip back across the counter. "This isn't a flea market. It's a premier financial institution, and that piece of trash isn't worth the ink on it." He didn't look at the routing number. He didn't look at the faded signature. He just saw a man in a faded flannel shirt and assumed the math was simple. But within exactly 4 minutes, that laugh would vanish, replaced by a cold, paralyzing sweat as the bank's central mainframe did something it hadn't done in 40 years. It locked down the entire branch's system to protect a single, multi-million-dollar file. Arthur didn't flinch. At 72, you don't get startled by a 30-something manager with a sharp suit and a sharper tongue. He simply smoothed the wrinkled paper with a thick thumb. To the casual eye, Arthur was just another struggling independent farmer trying to cash a meager crop check to pay off a late seed bill. The town of Oak Creek had been suffering through a 3-year drought, and the local bank had been aggressively foreclosing on family plots left and right, turning local heritage into corporate real estate. Julian had been leading that charge, earning a reputation as a ruthless corporate ladder climber who viewed the local agricultural community as an obsolete nuisance. He didn't know that Arthur wasn't here to cash a regular harvest stipend. Arthur was here because of a promise made in 1984, signed in blood and black ink by the founder of the banking conglomerate itself. The torn check wasn't a mistake, it was one half of a historic bilateral indemnity bond, designed to be verified only when matched with the master copy hidden deep within the vault's digital ledger. Julian tapped his gold pen impatiently against his mahogany desk, waving over 2 security guards. "Mr. Vance, if you don't exit the premises immediately, I'll have you removed for disturbing our high-net-worth clients," he sneered, gesturing toward a wealthy developer sitting in the glass office nearby. Arthur sighed, a sound like dry autumn leaves rustling. "Son," Arthur said softly, his voice carrying the heavy, undeniable weight of a man who owned the land the bank was built on, "I suggest you slide that piece of paper through the scanner. Just run the manual routing sequence, 001 alpha. If it doesn't clear, I'll walk out myself." Amused by the old man's delusion, and wanting to humiliate him thoroughly before the guards escorted him out, Julian snatched the torn paper. He slammed it onto the high-speed optical scanner and typed the sequence into his terminal with theatrical, aggressive keystrokes. For 2 seconds, the screen flickered normally. Then, the cheerful blue interface of the elite trust banking portal vanished. The screen turned a stark, blinding crimson. A single, high-pitched chime echoed from the server room behind the teller line. Julian's smile froze. The progress bar didn't say processing. It said critical security protocol initialized, hold entity immediately. Every terminal in the building suddenly went dark, replaced by a flashing text command that demanded the immediate presence of the regional director. Julian's mouse cursor froze. He tried to log out, but the system refused his credentials. He looked up at Arthur, his arrogance suddenly giving way to a creeping, suffocating panic. The farmer just stood there, his hands resting calmly on the counter, waiting for the system to finish reading the rest of his file. Julian stared at his terminal, his breath catching in his throat as the crimson error light pulsed against his face. What kind of farm check triggers a global security lockdown across a multi-billion-dollar banking network? He looked down at the torn piece of paper, suddenly realizing that the smudged ink wasn't dirt at all, it was the distinctive, faded watermark of a legacy treasury document used only by the institution's highest founding board members. The system wasn't just stalling, it was actively auditing every single transaction Julian had approved over the last 5 years, matching his aggressive foreclosure records against a massive, hidden trust fund that held the deeds to half the county. If this old farmer really was the owner of that dormant account, it meant every single property Julian had seized was legally protected under an unbreakable 40-year-old anti-acquisition covenant. Have you ever seen an arrogant person realize they've made the biggest mistake of their entire life in a single second? The physical transformation in Julian was immediate, his chest deflated, his hands began to tremble violently, and the smug color drained from his face until he looked as pale as the marble floors beneath him. If you've ever rooted for the underdog when corporate greed tries to push them around, type "Justice for Arthur" in the comments right now to show your support for the independent farmers who built our communities from the ground up. Watch closely as the power dynamic shifts completely, proving that a man's true worth can never be measured by the dust on his boots or the age of his clothes. We are just getting to the absolute best part of this incredible confrontation, where corporate greed meets an unstoppable force of rural history. If you want to see exactly how Arthur uses this hidden power to save his entire town from bankruptcy, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on all notifications, and leave a like on this video so you don't miss a single second of our daily storytelling journey. Your support helps us bring more of these incredible, emotionally satisfying stories of justice and hidden truth to light every single day.